falls inside the GM Studios halls. Tabletop games where nightmares creep, in a realm where sanity is lost and weak. Welcome to the abyss where dreams shatter. Inside the GM studio, nothing else matters. Blood and chaos, the dark arts unfold. In the realm of role-playing, where legends are told.
Hello out there in electric internet land. Welcome to Inside the GM Studio Side Quest podcast episode where we field questions from the internet and fire from the hip because I raw dog it like it's something to do. I am your host, David.
I am Matt.
I'm going to do that roll, clickety clack shit. I get a 5. That's not good. I'm going to have some bad result happen.
Ooh, okay.
The bonus is not good.
All right. Ooh. You know what? This one might be a good one. Hold on.
Right.
Hold
We'll
on.
see. Hang on.
Hold. This could be good.
Okay, could be good.
Let me bring this over here.
Right, bring it over here.
All right. So this one comes from our Ask Game Masters by the questioner Cypher 8300. With the question, what does your process look like? Hello. I am curious about other people's GM. Oh, thank you. I am curious about other people's GMing styles, and I needed to do a questionnaire with some people for my university class. If anyone is interested, I figured this could be a good way to for many people to see some of the general ways other GMs do things. Here are the questions. I will write up my answers in the comments as well. Sorry, as I said before on this show, if you listen to our side quest episodes, I don't read beyond the title. I find titles that are interesting and I throw it on the list.
Yeah.
All right, starting with David. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Number 1, what is your favorite part of GMing a game?
Getting the players engaged with dialogue with NPCs in a way that allows there to be dramatic tension, stakes, and for the PCs to say something about their character that hopefully moves the plot forward in an organic way. That's always really satisfying to me. It rarely happens, but when it does, it just gives me the feels.
Oh, totally. Especially when you kind of ad-lib something. You had something in the back of your head for a couple weeks, and you wondered if it was going to work. And all of a sudden, one of your players says something or does something, and you said, "Oh, now is the time. Now is the time to do this." And you say it, and all of a sudden,
as I say, I have something for this. I have something for this.
right? And then all of a sudden, the reaction from the players is like an this awe thing, and you just it gives you that it's that GM boner that you feel from it all. It's just like, God damn it, this is why I do this shit.
Yeah.
I will also add, because David is too much of a gentleman to say so, the reason that we GM a game is because we play in other people's games and we say, this is wrong. It should be done another way. And then we run games in the way that we like them to be done. And it's fine. It's fine. All of you GMs out there, you know what I'm talking about. We have fun in other people's games, sure, but there's that little piece inside of you that says, God damn it, why didn't they do it this way?
Do it better, bro.
Yep.
Do it better.
It could have been better if you did it this way. And that's why we GM.
The independent of dialogue, if I had to choose a close second, it would probably be when there is some sort of plot reveal that the players do not see coming and that it takes the plot in a different direction or has some sort of personal character resonance for the PCs. Again, not a super common thing, but the things that are good are not going to be common because you're building toward them and they require lots of building and they require lots of cooperation on the part of the players. And so
Yep.
you might be building something and the players are not, I don't want to make it sound like they're being difficult, but just the plot is not going in that way. And so you're always trying to build things collaboratively with the players. And when you build something that distills down into a big plot reveal, and so I'm a big fan of that, and especially like to my previous thing, if it's a big plot reveal that happens through some sort of organic dialogue with an NPC, then it's all the more like delicious, and I'm really into it. So, um, I would say that plot reveals, I feel like I've been doing a lot of plot reveals through flyover exposition lately,
Hmm.
and I'm not I think it's working okay for purposes of our campaign, but I would like to get more plot reveals,
I will say
more
it's
in that
working because we've gotten used to it. That is kind of how we are used to the plot reveals happening.
because they're probably because they're so academic, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I would like to kind of get down into the more direct and dialogue based and action oriented plot reveals. So I'm hoping that I can hold myself to a higher standard on that regard. I don't think it's too much at this point,
Mhm.
but it's almost getting to be, oh, like we're getting a lot of the plot reveals in an exposition sense instead of a more organic sense because those just take more time,
Mhm.
and I'm more interested in kind of keeping the plot moving along instead of
True.
having it be really slow, but that just comes at a cost of like the reveals are going to be more expositional based than they are like dialogue based. But when you get a good plot reveal and a plot twist and character motivation and some give and take punch and counter punch dialogue, like that shit is like what I fucking live for.
Right. All right. Number two. What is your least favorite part of GMing a game?
Wow. Having to adjudicate vagueness in the rules. I just fucking hate it. It's just like I don't
Yeah,
want to
I can
like
agree with that.
it's just so tedious because sometimes like
Oh,
you can
actually, I can heavily agree with that because now thinking about it, that encompasses a lot more. It's not just a blanket statement. This is an overall fact for GMs when it comes to especially power gamers, along with your even not so seasonal gamers, where you have to be that guy that just says, "Fucking stop." No, this is how it's gonna work. Even though
but
this dude
why?
he worked really
Why is it
hard.
that way?
Yeah,
Why?
he worked really hard to make his character work this way, where you have to say, "Stop, chill out. We're not going to do that like this. We got to do it this way."
Yeah.
And it really
It
sucks because really you don't want to discipline the power gamer because that's just the way that they play. But in order for the group to have fun, sometimes you do. You have to just tell them, "Dude, stop, slow down, just chill out a little bit." And it sucks. It really does.
yeah, because you adjudicating edge cases is tedious because you go if you're anything like me, you go, well, yeah, that makes sense. But then you think about the antithesis of it, you go, well, but the alternative kind of also makes sense. Like I can rationalize either of these things in a way that seems understandable and tenable, but I'm not really all that interested in what there there seems to be a strong sense of striving toward realism. And it's like, really? This is a world where dragons are a
Yeah, right.
thing.
Yeah.
And like heroes are, sure, yes, I understand that it seems weird to break the world if a player can fall off a 100-foot cliff onto solid rock, and the aggregate damage he takes means that he just gets up and kind of brushes himself off. That seems weird, but striving for realism in a world where dragons are a thing seems to be, at the very least, a little, it seems to be folly. So there, you need to establish the tensile strength of the suspension of disbelief. And I probably err a little more on the side of realism than the average GM, but
Hmm.
again, I don't know what the average GM thinks, but as a general rule, like I go, okay, things that don't seem accurate. The horse is moving at X amount of speed and barreling down on you, and if it clips you, it seems like you're gonna fall down and get hurt, right? And just because it might seem cool in a Hercules, the legendary journey sort of way, doesn't mean that it's something that you can ignore. But the rule of cool is a thing for a reason, and each GM needs to decide what things are in the parameters of establishing that world. I would say cobbling together those rule sets are the most tedious part of GMing, at least for me.
They are, and also the least favorite is, yeah, the tediousness of making
Tedium is the
the
word you're looking
tedium
for. There you
of,
go.
you know what? This is all going to go together. The tedium of making something that's going to punch really hard at some point.
Hmm.
And then when that punch doesn't land, it fucking sucks. And it makes you really feel like that comedian up on stage when a joke doesn't land. And then you feel it and you're like, I have to somehow work my way around this and make it good.
Sure,
And yeah, that really fucking sucks. I hate that shit.
I agree.
All right, going on to number 3. How long does it take you to prep for one session? These days, we're going to say now, in the year of our Lord 2025.
1 hour.
That's what I was going to say. 1 hour. Because if you take more than 1 hour, then you are
For
working
for a
way too
four
fucking
for a
hard.
4 hour session. A six or
Right.
8 hour session might be more like 2 hours.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, because I don't play over 4 hours right now. I
Hmm.
will say 1 hour.
Yeah.
1 hour is the golden. It is the golden hour.
Hmm.
If it takes more than that, you're working too hard.
And if it takes less than that, you're probably unprepared.
Right. Ooh, good. Good words. Good words. All right. How do you come up with character ideas? So I'm guessing this is maybe NPCs, because this is all supposed to be processes for GMs.
Hmm.
So when you say how do you come up with character ideas, I'm guessing he's talking about NPCs.
Sure. I try to think of what the NPC's role in the narrative is. And
Right. I think we
then
need to think, because I think David and I think in the same way, is there's major NPCs and then there's background NPCs.
I would say there's major, there's minor, and there's background.
Really? I only
Um,
have the two. I don't think of minor.
Minor are NPCs that likely get dialogue, but not major plot points. Background NPCs would be ones like the tavern owner, the innkeeper, the stable boy. Like they might not even get names,
Yeah. But
and they
they'll
might
have
not
like
even
2 or 3 lines of dialogue.
get characteristics
Yeah.
so much as they're just super stereotypical. The second level NPCs likely get lines of dialogue, and they might be more archetypical. Primary NPCs are going to be somewhat archetypical depending on the role in the plot, but maybe have layers of nuance and things that take them from a stereotype to an archetype, right? And
Hmm.
so they are memorable in some way. They primary NPCs pull at some desire for connection that the PCs have, and secondary NPCs are ones that maybe over a long arc, the PCs might gain some sort of kind of background affection
Yeah.
for,
Yep.
but
That's one that I was going to say is going to come up is when the PCs make that NPC uh, a major NPC, then you have to start making some shit up.
I'm, I don't even think if they make a major one, but it's just like if the PCs go to the same tavern repeatedly for several levels of an adventure, then repeated exposure counts for a lot.
Mm.
And so those are the NPCs that they require repeated exposure at a low level as opposed to impactful exposure that touches the plot. Background NPCs are ones that are throwaway or disposable. They really are there out of a matter of utility. You need someone that is grooming your horse, tailoring your clothes, whatever. And so they can transition from one to another if your character is the kind of character that cares a lot about how they look and they're always getting their clothes mended and tailored, then maybe the tailor in town that
Yeah.
is
Maybe
a
you should start thinking of a name.
yeah, a background NPC is maybe moving into a secondary NPC role.
Hell, David has a story about this because my character in our game right now, I actually made a connection with a what I think David might count as a secondary or tertiary NPC, and I kind of made him a very good friend of my character right now. So
Yeah,
he created a background and everything for this NPC.
yeah, and so that's like you have to kind of have your thumb on the pulse of what your PCs want. But as a general rule, you just want to make the NPCs have values, motivations, and goals that relate to the PC's
Hmm.
goals and have them resonate enough that if something bad or negative happened to them in some capacity, the PCs would care. Even if you don't ever pull that lever, it's good to establish those relationships so that you have a foundational aspect of the web of interconnectivity that the PCs exist in the world.
These next two I'm gonna skip because it's how do you play in person or online? Whether it's me and David, we play online. David only plays online right now. I play in person for two different games, but one of them we only play once every other month or so, as well as once every other week or so right now. And then the other question is how. What is it here? What game pieces do you use when you play a tabletop RPG? You know, I'll let you get into this in your past, David. Uh, what kind of minis do you use, or if you are lacking in minis, what have you used?
I've
Me
used
myself,
many.
yeah, I use a ton of minis because I'm a fucking lunatic and I buy minis like crazy. So I have a mini for fucking everything. And if I don't, I drink a whole bunch of PBR bottles, which has a card suit and number on the bottle cap. And we can use that for enemies if we have to.
I used to have a ton of minis, like a whole bookcase. I had minis.
I know, and now I have all of them. I think he gave me about three quarters of his old collection.
Did I give you all of
Yeah,
those?
you
Because
did. You gave me a
I,
ton of them. You gave me
I
a whole
wondered, I
shit ton.
wondered what fucking happened to them. I was
Yeah,
like, what did I ever do to
yeah,
those? I feel like I
they're
had
back there.
I had so many minis. Um, these days, I don't really use them as much because I don't play in person as much as I do like to. Um, But as a general rule, I favor anything that anchors the PC's sense of um, a tactile experience. So whether that's a handwritten letter that is imparted onto the PCs or minis in a tabletop environment
Oh, I
or
didn't even think about that. Game pieces. Oh, like fucking actual objects that you could place on the table. Oh, that's a
yes,
great one. Oh, damn it. You know, I
yes,
wish I used more because, you know, I'm going to tell you right now, listener, David, back in the day, he was really fucking good at this. He would he wouldn't oven bake paper like, you know, where some I would do this, like, now dip it in coffee and put it in the oven and all that, but he would at least take paper, write a note in some sort of calligraphy, and then burn the edges at least, and then roll it up in a scroll and give it to us. I thought that was cool as shit. It was so fucking cool. You know, I was 14 at the time, but I thought it was fucking awesome. Like, this dude was making an effort to immerse me into the world. Very fucking cool. And I remember you also had some gems. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. When we were doing the rod of seven parts,
yes,
and you had different colored gems that you gave us for the different parts that we had, and I
yeah.
thought that was super fucking cool. And yes, I didn't even think about that. How? Oh damn it, the pieces. All I thought about was just like, oh yeah, a mini on a combat grid. No, the pieces that you use. Oh, this is way deeper than I thought. Holy shit. No. Way more.
Just
Please.
anything that can involve your other senses. Yeah,
Yes,
I
please.
was always a big fan, and I've gotten away from it in recent
I
years,
know.
but
And you know
I
what? I don't do it enough. I need to do it more because now thinking about it, fuck, man. Even with the little bit that I do of like live games, you did way more back in our high school days, back when we were like 14,
it's because
than I
it's
do
super
now.
low tech. I didn't have any
Oh my
like tech
God,
available
dude.
to me.
Yeah, but I play in person. I should do some cool shit like this again because that was so fucking awesome when you did that.
And
It
like
was so little. It
roll
was.
something up in a scroll and like
Yeah.
tie it with like a bit of twine and like
And yeah,
give it
you
to
unrolled
you.
it and it was on like blue lined, you know, notepad paper, but it was so fucking cool because it was burned on the edges. It was. It was awesome. It was so cool. And he would draw these little maps and shit and do the same thing. It was fucking badass. I didn't even think about that. I forgot about the cool things that were little pieces that you could make for your table.
Hmm.
And god damn it, God, that was so good. I need to start doing that again because I've faulted back onto just pieces that meant something in the game, like you know, meta currencies and all that. And I
Sure.
forgot about just the joys of a little bit of paper here and there or a note passed. Yeah, I forgot all about that. God, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, I was always a big fan of it, and I've probably gotten away from it in recent years. I mean, it's good to hear that it kind of resonates with you all these years later, and I would hope that Cody and Jason and my other players from back then kind of remember those things.
Well,
And
yeah,
it,
now that we all play online, it's just kind of gone by the wayside.
well, I mean, yeah, there's really not a way to interact with something in a tactile sense, so I don't know how to replicate that,
Yeah, it's tough.
but I would say that anything that kind of is evocative um, of a variety of um, different sensibilities that engage the players in a variety of different ways that are different levels is probably a better way to go about thinking about it, and even just the littlest things, like for instance, let's just say there's a letter, okay, so maybe the players can't see the actual letter or hold it in their hands, but sometimes just having the exact words
Mhm.
of what the letter says as opposed to kind of giving them a vague sense. Oh, well, the letter communicates to you X, Y, and Z. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but maybe anytime you can have the actual words like read to the player, it communicates the voice of the NPC and the table stakes of like what's at play.
Mhm.
Um, if you can do that occasionally, I think you're winning. It doesn't need to be all the time.
Mhm.
Choose it. Choose moments that might be significant in the plot. And if you do that, reading the actual words, crafting them, it's no easy feat because it's really easy to kind of give the players a sense of like what a letter communicates, but actually crafting that letter in the voice of the character that's supposedly writing it is difficult. But from my experience, players do appreciate that effort if you
Mhm.
go through it when it's important, and try to think of the times that are important and when you could craft just a light touch with something like that. It goes a long way with players, as evident by the fact that Matt
Very
like
much
remembers
so.
this shit from like 20 years ago or
And
whatever.
I want to bring up the difference because I know there's going to be some people out there that are going to say, "Oh, Matt, you're a fucking Call of Cthulhu award-winning GM and all that. You're a keeper that does all
You
this
are.
shit."
You're an award-winning keeper. This
I
guy's an
did.
award-winning
I
keeper.
won awards for being a keeper for Call of
Mm-hmm.
Cthulhu.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I passed out a bunch of notes, a bunch of newspaper feeds, a bunch of fucking clues for everything. And you know what I'm gonna tell you? It's because the scenario told me to. And that's the problem. I will tell you, yes, I did. I sent out a whole bunch of shit for my players to hold on to. Nice, beautiful pieces for them to hold on to that looked great uh, because the scenario told me to.
Mm-hmm.
Call of Cthulhu is one of those games that I really latch onto a scenario and I will make my own, or I will just run a scenario because they are better than what I can come up with. So there you go. Yes, we're D&D back in second edition, back in, or even if you want to call it first edition, AD&D that David was running. He just did it on his own, which was way better. Go fuck yourself, COC. I love you. Don't fuck yourself. Call of Cthulhu. I love you. Let me do more games. I'm gonna do it. All right, next. How often do you reference the rules during gameplay?
I don't need to reference the rules, bro. I know the
That's
rules.
bullshit. I'm gonna tell you right now. I reference the rules for if it's Dungeons and Dragons for a 4 hour session. Eh, once every hour, I will reference at least once every hour.
Mm-mm.
There's something that
Nope.
a player will
Nope.
come up
Nope.
with.
Nope.
Fuck you. Shut up. Shut up. A player will come up with something that I'll be like, let me check that shit real quick.
Nope.
There's never been a time that you said, let me check that shit real quick.
No, I'm not saying there's never been a time, but once an hour, you're failing if you have to check the rules once an hour.
We're
You
talking
suck.
4 times in a 4 hour session.
No, you suck. Suck. You fucking suck, bro. Like I'm like once every 20 to 25 hours, and it might just be like the exact wording of something. Like I know the rules. You should know the rules, but once an hour isn't bad, to Matt's point. But
Not
it's
bad.
not bad, but it's not ideal. Ideal is never, obviously, but like,
Yeah.
but
Ideal is never.
ideal is like just knowing exactly what the wording. Most of the things that I check the rules for are the exact
Yeah,
wording
that
of
is
what
the
it
one thing that
says.
both of us try to get, and that's why both of us, I know, whenever somebody especially casts a spell, we say,
Yep.
what does it
What does it
say?
say?
What does it say?
Exactly.
Oh, well, the duration. I didn't ask what the
I
duration was.
I said, what does it say?
What does
What does
it
it say?
say?
What does it say?
Yes. So I would say, yes, depending on how many spellcasters you have in your party, once per hour. All right.
I say it's too much.
Fuck off. Shut up. So next one. Do you do stats for characters beforehand or just make it up on the spot for your NPCs?
Depends on the NPCs. That really
Yep,
is.
I agree.
If they're an important marquee NPC, then
It is a beforehand thing. Yep.
yes, I probably have a vague idea of kind of what their
But
skills
see, I don't
are.
understand. I don't think they would be that important if you didn't do it beforehand. Because if you just do it on the spot, then they're kind of throwaway, right?
But if you're allowing for the opportunity, so you and I, when we're designing narratives, we have NPCs that are clearly important to the plot, and they should have stats. They should have like, what is this nobleman's charisma?
Right.
And then there's probably a second tier of characters that give a vague idea of what their skills are, but you didn't necessarily cobble them together. And then there are tertiary characters that you don't have any idea, but if the PCs latch onto them, then they can move up in priority, right? And if
Right.
they move up in priority, then they need to probably be having some semblance of what their stats are. Some sort of one-eyed dwarf that the PCs are playing dice with on the docks. Suddenly, the characters are embroiled in some sort of bar fight with him. It might be useful to know what his strength score is.
Yeah, but I think if that NPC becomes important in that spot, then I should start making note of what their talent should be in order to make it later,
No,
in order to flesh it out later.
I agree with you, but like the the NPCs that you know were going to be marquee NPCs should have well defined stats, and the PCs that maybe might be important, you should have a rough idea of what their stats are, even if they're not codified. Like, this guy is physically strong, this guy is charismatic, this guy is wisdomous, as it were. um, and, and then codify it as it becomes relevant, and then the other NPCs that might be in the third tier, they're not as important, but those are varying degrees of importance, and you probably should be codifying them as they become relevant to the plot. But there is a layer of NPCs that ought to be fairly well established. You don't need to get into all of the details of like all of the details of what their class skills are or whatever, but you should have a vague idea of like, yes, he's a charismatic, physically weak, but
Intelligent.
dexterous and
Yes.
fairly intelligent character,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
have that as a baseline, and it makes it easy to exist in a framework that seems appropriate for an NPC in the plot. So hopefully that answers that.
Yep. And lastly, tell me about how you tracked your last session and how you track your campaign in a whole. All right. I'll tell you right now. For me specifically, I have pretty much just a Google Doc. I have a Google Doc where I do a lot of bullet points, and I do a lot of check off marks. because that's all I do. I try not to railroad my PCs too much, and I just have marks that I want them to check off before I go to the next part. Uh, and I found that a Google Doc is pretty much the best way to do it. I know back in the day, both David and I used a tool for fourth edition. God damn it, what was that thing called? It was I play 4E, and it was like it had this tool that you can make it that you could have one section that would break down into multiple sections, and then it would loop around to another. It was a great program. It was free, especially for fourth edition, because you could click each cell that you had for each part of the adventure, and you could put all your NPCs, enemies, and magic items, or any items that you want to put in there, which in fourth edition was very, very important. So I Play 4E was very, very important to us back in the day, and both Dave and I used that. But now with fifth edition, it doesn't matter that much, and Google Docs is all I use now. What about you, David?
I don't do this. I don't do it at all. I I don't track shit. I might take notes occasionally when we're playing, but I don't have tracking systems, and that is probably egregious to people that are more fastidious about these sort of things, but I am more concerned with where the overall tenor of the narrative is going and the emotional stakes that are at play for the players. I just want to keep track of things enough so that I don't forget what's happening in the plot. But beyond that, I don't really track these sort of things. So I might be atypical in that regard, but I'm more concerned with solidifying the mood and the table stakes of what the players or what the characters care about. And if some things get kind of lost in the shuffle, then I'm okay with that as long as the players are never bored and are never uninvested in what the narrative stakes of the dramatic scenario are. And it seems to be going pretty well for me.
Yeah, fuck yeah. I'm sure you're probably on the same boat that some of us are, where if somebody brings up something, maybe a player character, or maybe something happens where you're just like, you know what would be really interesting, and you jot something down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that happens quite a bit for all of us. I don't
Yeah.
care who you are.
Like, what if it was that thing?
Yeah, what if it was
is
that thing?
is it
Or,
the black spider? I
you
don't
know what?
know.
They just said something. Yeah, the black spider. You know what? They just said something that's kind of interesting. I'm going to write that down for later.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's going to bring us to the end of this episode. David, do you want to end us on anything?
No, we're way over time here, so I'm gonna go ahead
Fucking
and
A,
just
we are.
be
So
quiet about it.
we're going to bring it to a good night.
And good luck.